Okay, we are going to be starting in a moment on 150A, Kuf Nun, right? I believe with the new Mishnah. I think that's what we had gotten up to yesterday. Am I right? I don't see my bookmark is there, but I don't see my pencil mark on the Yamud, so.
Mishnah on 158, one.
On 158?
No, 150.
150, right. Okay, so we're all set. Okay, thank you for confirming that. All right, so gentlemen, we'll get underway. I don't know, Harvey hopefully will join us at some point. Everyone I'm sure will too. Okay, so remember, we're all still dealing with issues regarding Shabbat. What could be done on Shabbat? We talked about foodstuffs, preparing foods. We talked about muktzah. We talked about shvut, okay? And remember shvut being rabbinic. And so maybe this area that we're talking about here today in this Mishnah might fall under that category of shvut, of rabbinic prohibitions to be done on Shabbat, okay? And I sort of, as we go through this particular, excuse me, Mishnah and Gemara, I think we can relate to it a little bit more because it starts talking about, well, what could you do on Shabbat in anticipation of something Motzei Shabbat, okay? Generally, we know that that is an issue, preparing on Shabbat for Motzei Shabbat. Or even, so the Gemara is going to touch on these issues. Matnitin, says our Mishnah, Lo yiskor adam po'alim b'Shabbat, that a person may not hire workers, laborers on Shabbat, v'lo yamar adam l'chavero, and a person should not say to his neighbor. Okay? Question we're going to get to in the Gemara, of course, is this a Jewish neighbor or a Gentile neighbor? Okay. L'skor lo po'alim, to hire him workers. Okay. The next piece, okay, ein machshichin al hatchum l'skor lo po'alim. I don't know how Art Scroll might translate this phrase. Koren Steinsaltz said one should not wait, okay, for nightfall, okay? In other words, one goes up to the, goes into the tchum of Shabbos before Shabbos is over, as if to anticipate doing something immediately, being able to do it immediately after Shabbos in order to hire workers, okay? Lahavi perot, or to begin to bring produce. Aval machshichu l'shmor umevi perot biyado, but he may go and wait for nightfall. In other words, go into the tchum, okay, before Shabbos is over, if it is a question of to make sure that his field is all right, or if there is produce there that immediately after Shabbat he needs to bring in. Klal Amar Abba Shaul says a general principle presented by Abba Shaul, Kol Shani Zakai Ba'amirato, anything about which I have the right, okay, to discuss, to instruct on it. Rashai ani lahachshich alav. I'm also permitted to wait for nightfall, okay, in other words, at the tchum to get a, so to speak, jump on doing that work. Gemara says, the Gemara Pshita, doesn't this seem obvious? So the Gemara says, Ma ishna hu, ishna chavero. What difference is it him? What difference is it is his neighbor? Amar Rav Papa, chaver nachri. Rav Papa suggests, well, maybe we're talking about a Gentile neighbor who is not subject to Shvut. Okay, Matkif la Rav Ashi, and Rav Ashi challenges him and says as follows: Amira lenachri Shvut. But don't we have a principle, let's say, that even speaking to one's non-Jewish neighbor is forbidden because of Shvut. Okay. Now, Ela Amar Rav Ashi. Rather, Rav Ashi says, Afilu tema chavero Yisrael. One might even say his Jewish neighbor. Ha-kamash malan. Therefore, here it comes to teach us, Lo yamar adam lechavero schor li poalim. Person may not say to his neighbor, hire me workers. Aval omer adam lechavero. But a person may say to his neighbor, Hanir'eh sheta'amod imi la'erev. Do you want to meet me tonight at, let's say, 8, whatever it is, okay? And with the implication that the purpose would be to hire him to do some work. Umatnitin mani, says our Gemara. And our Mishnah is according to whom? Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha. According to Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, he says, Tanya, who teaches, Lo yamer adam lechavero hanir'eh sheta'amod imi la'erev. A person should not say to his neighbor, okay, the following, that, can we see if we can join me this evening? Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha Omer, he says, Omer adam lechavero hanir'eh sheta'amod imi la'erev. What? But Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha says that one may say to the neighbor, she'll see you whether you can join me this evening. Now, what happens? As follows. Amar Rabba bar bar Chana, says Rabba bar bar Chana, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Halacha ka Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha. And the law is like Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha. So Gemara asks, right? If that's the case, but Amar Rabba bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan, my Tama the Rabbi Yoshua ben Karcha, what's his reasoning? Right? Dechtiv, because there's a pasuk that says, Mi mitzvah chafatzecha v'dabar davar. Right? The pasuk says, nor finding your own pleasure, nor speaking your own words. In other words, saying something explicitly seems to be forbidden. Dibur asur. Okay? Hirhur, but the implications, the thought about it, mutar, is permitted. Now, this is going to be pointed out problematic with the following contradiction. Rami Vev Rav, Acha bar Rav Huna, the Rabbah. Right? So Rabbi Rav Acha bar Rav Huna raises it to Rabbah. Mi Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Did Rabbi Yochanan really say, Dibur Asur Hirhur Mutar, that explicit speech is forbidden, but thinking about it is permitted? Okay, this would therefore seem to imply, Hirhur Lav Kadibur Dami, that thinking about something is not the equivalent, okay, of speech. V'ha'amar Rabba bar bar Chana amar Rabbi Yochanan. But elsewhere, didn't Rabba bar bar Chana say in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, B'chol makom mutar laharher, chutz mi beit hamerchatz mi beit hakisei. In every place it is permitted to think, in other words, to meditate, so to speak, on Torah thoughts, with the exception of the bathhouse and the Beit Kisei, right? And right, Shani Hatam. Why there, says the Gemara, why those two exceptions? The Ba'inan, why? Because we require, based on a pasuk, V'hayam machanecha kadosh. And the pasuk said, Veleka, that your camp, so to speak, right, would be holy. Implication that that's not the case in those two places. Hachanami. Here too, says the Gemara. Kativ, it's also written elsewhere in another pasuk, V'lo yireh b'cha ervat davar, that one should not have any indecent speech, indecent act. Davar, there being understood to be speech. Hahu mibaye le'likadarav Yehuda, says the Gemara. That pasuk is interpreted in that manner according to what's needed for the view of Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Rav Yehuda, Akum Arum Asur Lekrot Kriyat Shma Kenegdo. A naked Gentile, one is forbidden to recite Shema in his presence, let's say. My area Akum. So the Gemara asks, why specifically a Gentile? Afilu Yisrael Nami. Even a naked Jewish, it should be forbidden to recite Shema in his presence. Lo mabaye ka'amar. No, the Gemara is real. The statement is using a lo mabaye style. You don't really have to say that. Namely, spelling it out, lo mabaye Yisrael. We don't even have to say a Jew, the asur, that it's forbidden. About akum. But in terms of a Gentile, kivan dichtiv be, because elsewhere there's a pasuk that says, asher basar chamurim besaram, that their meat, their body is like that of donkeys. In other words, that they are, in a sense, their flesh is the same. We might have thought, well, if it's no different than an animal, maybe you could say Shema in their presence. Ema Shapir Dami. Okay, I would say, therefore, that it comes to tell us all the more. Kamash Malan comes to teach us that that's the case. Namely, that one does not recite their Shema or anything in that presence, in indecent surroundings. Ema Hachinami. Okay. So you would say, so I would say this is the case here as well. Amakra, as another pasuk says, ve'avat avihem lo ra'u. Okay, referring to the Noah story, right? Their father did not see their father's nakedness, right? V'dibur mi'asir, asks the Gemara, if that's the case, that they prohibit speaking, V'harav Chista v'Rav Hamnuna. But what about the example of Rav Chista and Rav Hamnuna? The Amrei Travayu, where both of them said, Cheshbonot shel mitzvah mutur lechashvan b'Shabbat. That if you have certain accounts that are dealing with a mitzvah, religious nature, they may be calculated on Shabbat. Va'amar Rabbi Elazar, and Rabbi Elazar also says, poskim tzedakah la'aniyim b'Shabbat, that we may actually determine the amount of charity to be granted to poor people on Shabbat. Va'amar Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, who said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Mefakhin pikuach nefesh, upikuach rabim b'Shabbat. That also, he says, we can supervise issues of life and death, okay, and the issues that are for the community welfare, okay, on Shabbat. V'holchin lebatei knesiot, lefakech al iskei rabim b'Shabbat. And not only that, he said, but one can go to synagogues on Shabbat and discuss it there. Va'amar Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, and Rab Shmuel bar Nachmani, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, goes even further. And he says, Holchim la'teirat ha'ot, u'lekarkasaot, u'lebesila ka'ot, lefakech al iskei rabim b'Shabbat. That it's permitted for one to go to the Roman theaters, or the Roman circuses, or even the Roman basilica, the courthouses, in order to supervise the affairs of the community. Okay? Just as an aside, by the way, remember that in Roman times, particularly in the circuses, okay, a criminal would be forced to go into the arena and perhaps have to fight either another individual or an animal. And if the, quote, criminal was Jewish, this was an issue of sakanat nefashot, if they could save the life of the Jew by going to the arena, to the circus, so to speak. Vatana debei Menashe, and it was taught in the Academy of Menashe, Mishadchin al hatinokot le'areis b'Shabbat. It says there that one could set up between two young people engagements on Shabbat. V'al hatinok lelamdo sefer, and to make arrangements for education of a child. Okay? Ulelamdo omanot, or to make arrangements for a young person to start learning a trade. Okay. Amarkra, and a pasuk says, "Mitzvah chafatzecha v'daber davar." Right? The pasuk saying, "Finding your own affairs, nor speaking your own words." How do we understand that? Chafatzecha, your own affairs, asurim. That's prohibited. B'chaftei shemayim mutarim. But the affairs of heaven, in other words, those religious matters, are permitted. Okay. Now, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Shmuel, coming back to this point, right? Cheshbonot shall question the word whether melech needs to be here, but let's understand this. In other words, accounts, right? V'shel ma b'chach mutar l'chashvan b'Shabbat. In other words, those accounts that are of the past, okay, all right, or those that are ma b'chach, of what value is it? In other words, unimportant. They may be reviewed, so to speak, on Shabbat. Tanya Nami Hachi, and we also have a Braita that teaches Cheshbonot she'avru, those accounts that were passed, v'she'atidin lihiyot, and those that are yet future accounts, asur, are forbidden, l'cheshvan, okay, right, to calculate them, all right, shel melech. All right, let's go over. V'shel ma b'chach, but if they are of, let's say, as I say, the government issues, or of no real value, mutar l'chashvan. They are permitted to be accounted, taken into review, calculated. or minhu, but we'll contrast and challenge this with the following braita. Choshvin cheshbonot she'enam tzrichin. That it's permissible to determine accounts that are not required. Ve'ein mechashvin cheshbonot she'tzrichin b'Shabbat. But we are not able to calculate accounts that are required, that are necessary on Shabbat. Ketzad, how is that possible? Omer Adam lechavero. A person might say then to one's neighbor, Kach v'kach po'alim hotzeti al sadeh zo. I hired so many workers, okay, for this field. Kach v'kach dinarim hotzeti al dirazo. I spent so much amount of money on this residence. Okay. Aval, but lo yeomer lo, but he cannot say to him, Kach v'kach hotzeti, v'kach v'kach ani atid lahotzi. Such so and so I spent, and how this and so I intend to spend. Ulata'amech, and according to that line of reasoning, kashalach igufa. This braita itself, this kind of reasoning is problematic. Ela ha deika agra da'agira gabe. Okay? So in this first braita, what we're saying is here, there's an issue where the payment, where the wages, okay, are still in the, so to speak, in the hand of the employer. Ha, deleka agra da'agira gabe. And in the other case, the wages are not, the payment is due, is not in the hand of the employer. Okay. All right. Ein mechashvin, says our Mishnah. Right? Okay. Ein machashichin, I'm sorry. Okay, we cannot, right, go out into the tchum at nightfall before Shabbat is over to anticipate immediate action. Tanu Rabbanan, says this braita in regards to our Mishnah. Ma'aseh b'chasid echad shepartza lo peretz b'toch sadehu. An incident occurred with a certain righteous man that there was a breach in the fence, okay, in his field. V'nimlach alei legodra, and he considered it and decided that he should fence it in. V'niskar sheShabbatu, and he realized when he was thinking about it that it was Shabbat. V'nimna oto chasid v'lo gadra, and this same righteous man held back, and he didn't fence it in at that moment, let's say on Shabbat. V'ne'aselo nes v'alta bo tzlaf, and a miracle occurred on his behalf, and a caper tree grew. Umimena haita parnasato uparnasat anshe beito. Okay, and right in the gap where that defense was, the tree grew. Okay, so not only did it close the gap, okay, but also the caper berries provided him additional parnasa, okay, and not only for him, but for his family. Okay. Another section, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, says as follows. Mutar la'adam lomar lechavero. It's permitted for one to say to his neighbor, Likrach ploni ani holech lemachar, to such and such a village, town, I'm going to go tomorrow. Okay? She'im yesh borganim, because so long as there are guard houses, holech, along the way, okay, I can go because I'm not going beyond Tchum Shabbat, since the Tchum Shabbat continues to extend so long as there is physical structures that allow for residence, okay, in that roadway, right? Tznan, okay. So now another Mishnah, okay. Coming back actually to our Mishnah where it taught, Ein machshichin al hatchum l'skor po'alim lahavi perot, where it says that one cannot go out into the tchum, okay, at night, right, to okay, to hire workers or to bring in food, produce. Bishlema l'schor po'alim, de b'Shabbat lo matze agar. Why? That's understandable in terms of hiring workers on Shabbat because he doesn't have payment, right? Ela lahavi perot, but to go back and to bring in the produce. Lema she'im yesham mechitzot mevi. Isn't it possible to say then that in that situation, if there is any kind of walls, partitions, okay, there, that, in other words, if the roadway is between walls, it could be then considered a private domain, okay, and he could carry in the private domain, right? Mishkachet la b'perot hamechubarim. No, he says what we're dealing here, okay, is a situation where the produce is still attached to the ground. Vahatani, Rabbi Oshaya. But didn't Rabbi Oshaya teach, Ein machshichin al hatchum lahavi teven v'kash, right? That one does not enter at nightfall the tchum in order to immediately afterwards bring in, or if not afterwards, to bring in straw, okay, or stubble. Bishlema kash, it's understandable when we talk about the stubble, because that's sort of broken twigs and things like that. Mishkachet la b'mechuba, okay, why? Because some of them, okay, may still be attached. Ela teven, but strong. Hechi mishkachet la. Okay, on what basis? Okay, why'd we say that bringing the straw in is prohibited? Betivna sarya. We're talking there about rotten, okay, foul smelling straw. That's the point. Now, coming back to our new Braita. Tashma, listen to the following. Machshichin al hatchum lefarkeach al iskei kala va'al iskei hamed. We have a Braita that teaches that one may go into the tchum at nightfall, right, in order to begin prepare for the next day, arrangements for a wedding or for a funeral. Okay. Al iske kala umeid in, for arrangements for a wedding or a funeral, yes. Al iske acher lo, and it would seem then to imply for any other kind of business, so to speak, that's not permissible. Bishlema acher dumia de kala. If that other purpose, okay, is similar to something, part of the wedding, mishkachet la, lemigza le'asa. For example, it may be that one is going out so that later they can cut down myrtle branches, which would help form part of the chuppah. Right? Elamate, my nihu, but in terms of a corpse, okay, what would you say there is needed for that advanced preparation? Lahavilo aron v'tachrichi, to bring a casket and tachrichi. Uktani made in, but we teach for the deceased, for the corpse, yes. Aval acher lo, but for some other purpose, no. Va'amai, and why is that the case? Lema, let us say, she'im yesham mechitzot mevi, that if there's some sort of walls or partitions there, that it's then a rishus for yachid, and he can carry it. Meit nami mishkachet la, because for a corpse, also we might find that there is a possible reason, lamigza leg lima, in order to sort of cut or trim some sort of a coat or cloak in order to make the shrouds. Okay, coming back now again to a phrase from our Mishnah, right? Aval machshichin. Okay, we say that one may go out to the tchum at nightfall under certain circumstances. The Alfagav de lo avdil, and asks the Gemara, even despite the fact that he had not made Havdalah, Vahama Rabbi Eliezer ben Antigonus, Mishum Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov. Okay, and wasn't it said by Rabbi Eliezer ben Antigonus in the name of Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, Asur lo la'adam, shi'aseh chafatzav kodem sheyavdil, that it's forbidden for a person to deal with any of his affairs before reciting a Havdalah. V'chi tema da'avdil b'tfilah, and if you want to say that he made Havdalah as part of his Shmona Esrei, V'ha'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, and did not Rav Yehuda say in the name of Shmuel, Hamavdil b'tfilah tzrich sheyavdil al hakos, that one who makes Havdalah as part of his Shmona Esrei also must make Havdalah on the cup, okay, a cup of wine. V'chi tema da'avdil al hakos, and if you're going to say that he has to make it on a cup, kos b'sadeh mi'ika, is he going to have a cup of wine out there in the fields? Tirgama Rabbi Natan bar Ami Kame de Rava, and this was explained by Rabbi Natan bar Ami before Rava as follows, right? Bein hagitot shanu, that the person was out in the fields, but he was in the area of the wine presses. Okay, so that's where he was. So he was would be able to get a cup of wine obtainable in the field. Amarle Rav Abba the Rav Ashi. And so Rav Abba says to Rav Ashi, B'ma'arava, he says to him, in the west, in Eretz Yisrael, Amrinan Hachi, we say the following, Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, right? One who makes the distinction between the holy and the profane. Va'avdinan sorchim, and then we do our necessary affairs. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi ki havina be Rav Kahana. He says, when I was at Rav Kahana's academy, Hava Amar Hamavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, we would say, then makes the distinction between sanctified and weekday, Umisaltinan Silte, and then he would have us go out and chop up the wood for logs. Right. Okay, coming back now to sort of finish a bit. Klal Amar Abba Shaul Kol Sha'ani V'chule. Abba Shaul made the general statement. Remember that he says, what's something that I can say about, I can discuss on Shabbat, I should be able to go out to the Tchum and Erev on Motzei Shabbat before Shabbos is over. Ibayalahu. So they asked him, the sages, Abba Shaul al-Hayya. Abba Shaul, what was he referring to? Okay, on which, Ilema Areshakai, if we're going to say that he was talking about the first part, right, of our statement, of our, right, Ein machshichin al tchum l'skor po'alim lahavi perot, where it's said that one does not wait out into the evening in the Tchum Shabbat in order to hire workers or to bring in fruit. Okay, let's go over a little bit. Hai kol sha'ani zakai ba'amirito. Rashai ani b'hakashichato. In that case, if he says that I have, what I have is, it's acceptable to discuss it, to say it, to write, then I should be permitted to wait out there at nightfall. Kol she'eni zakai ba'amirato. That which I'm not permitted to say, to instruct, eini rashai b'haskirato. I'm not then permitted to go wait, okay, into the tchum of that. Mibayele. So at that point, okay, but if you want to ask, ela asefakai, but rather maybe on the later part of the statement, aval machshichu l'shmor umevi perot biyado. Okay, the fact that it says that he is in order to watch over any produce, okay, in his field, or to bring the produce home with him. Right? Hi, kol sha'ani zakai b'chashichato, rashai ani ba'amirato. Okay, that which I'm permitted to, again, give instruction on, okay, I'm also permitted then, that which I'm permitted to go out late in the Tchum at nightfall, I'm also permitted to give instruction on, right? So the Gemara is going to say, Mebayele, okay? And then they discuss it and raise the question, Leolam asefa kai, ba'aba Shaul aha kai. Right? And what we're going to stop there by saying that no, Rabbi Abba Shaul must be dealing with the later statement about being able to watch over the field and bring the produce home, and that's what he's going to be basing himself on, right? And we'll stop right there, and that's where we'll pick up tomorrow, okay? Right? And then it's going to start, we're going to cite what Abba Shaul's basis is, and that's where we'll pick up. Okay?
Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Take care.
You too. Bye-bye.